I just got some notes from our local reporter who is inside the courtroom. So when that guilty verdict was read, I'm told that Karmelo Anthony was crying. He was shaking. His defense attorney kept his arm around his shoulders the entire time. And also I'm told that Austin Metcalf's twin brother, Hunter, this was the first time he was inside the courtroom when that guilty verdict was read. I'm told it was really emotional from both sides after that murder verdict. And as for what's next, Will, now it's the sentencing phase. He is charged with murder, so he could face up to life in prison. The same exact juror, they're the ones who decide how long he remains behind bars. And that's what this sentencing phase sentencing phase is. That reporter inside the courtroom tells me that Karmelo Anthony's mother, she's already taken the stand. This is a direct quote. She said, quote, "He is my oldest, my firstborn, my baby. I love him very much." I'm told that she had mascara running down her face and asked the jury, quote, "Please have mercy on my son." And then the prosecutor sort of cross-examined her and said, "Isn't it true you could still have a relationship with your son while he's behind bars?" So this is sort of the next phase right now. The jury's going to decide.
So as we've all seen so far, Karmelo Anthony has been sentenced to 35 years in prison, right? I think he has the opportunity for parole probably after 17 years, 15 years or something like that, right? And listen, this is going to be a unbiased video. This is my thoughts on the situation. This is my thoughts on what I believe and just everything that surrounds this case, okay? First and foremost, what many people need to understand, which I would think that people would understand, but Karmelo did it first and foremost, right? This isn't a case where it was mistaken identity. This isn't a case where they picked up the wrong person, right? This isn't a case where, he was wrongfully arrested. This is not one of those, okay? So first and foremost, he did it, right? He did it. And listen, there are consequences for actions, right? Every choice you make in this life, right? Good or bad, for every action, there's a reaction. And there was a reaction, a big reaction, a nationwide reaction in what Karmelo did. So that part right there is not up for debate, right? And quite frankly, I don't even understand, why people are in such uproar as they are. Like I said, this isn't a case where he was beaten up in the middle of the street like, what's the guy named? Rodney King in the 90s. This isn't one of those, this isn't even what's the guy name that, whose knee was put in the back of his neck, right? It's not one of those type cases, okay? This is a clear case of he did it and he was arrested for it and now he has to do time for it. Listen, if you want to avoid such scenarios, don't make such choices, right? Don't make the kind of choices that's gonna land you a lifetime behind bars. Don't make the kind of choices, right, that's gonna force the system's hand. Don't make those kind of choices. And unfortunately, Karmelo made that choice, right? And listen, everybody's saying, oh, well, it wasn't fair. They gave him an all-white jury and so on and so forth. Man, if you watch my videos, listen, this is what I talk about all the time. Stop thinking people owe you understanding. Stop thinking people are going to take it easy on you. Stop thinking that the game is played on easy mode. The game is not being played on easy mode. The game is being played on hard mode, right? And it's harder for some than it is for others. Listen, this is a fact, and we know this already. But before we even get to that scenario, why did you put yourself in this predicament in the first place? See, and this is one of the problems that I have, you know, with the black community in America, because before we even get to the point of talking about unfairness, before we even get to talking about the fact of maybe the dad was in cahoots with the judge and the DA, before we even get to those facts alone, evaluate your goddamn landscape first and foremost, right? Evaluate the landscape, right? Let's take it back a little bit and talk about accountability, right? Because we can talk about it. We can possibly bring up the argument of an all-white jury that was not, his peers. We can talk about that, right? But first and foremost, we got to talk about accountability. Why, Karmelo, did you make that choice, right? Out of all the choices that you could have made, why would be the first choice of yours to stab somebody in the neck, right? Listen, that has to be punished, right? In what society do you think is just gonna let that slide by? In what society did y'all even think that he was gonna get off, right? And quite frankly, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was actually surprised with the first degree murder. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was surprised with the first degree murder, right? I was surprised with that because I didn't think that he went over there looking to kill somebody, right? When people talk about intentional murder, right, I'm thinking that, okay, he had to go over there with the intentions of wanting to kill him exactly, right? And I don't know all the facts of the case, so, I'm not even gonna act like I'm just savvy on it or whatever, right? I definitely thought, because I knew self-defense was not gonna fly, right? Self-defense wasn't gonna fly because it's like, well, because everything was still grainy. It's like, well, why were you over there in the first place if you weren't supposed to be over there? And then, it belonged to, I guess, that said school. And then if you were told to leave, right? It's just a lot of things that, are a little bit iffy for you to claim self-defense. And then also, I mean, let's be real. You can't just get shoved, right? And then claim self-defense. That's not how they work. And then on top of that, you got to add that, these are kids. And then on top of that, this is a official school event, right? So this is not something like on the streets or something like that, where you just in fear for your life. This isn't one of those situations. So from the beginning, I didn't think that I think that self-defense was a lousy defense, to be fair with you. I think what should have happened, and I believe his attorney was shit as well, just to be quite frank with you too. The attorney was shit, right? What I believe is they should have went on and took a deal. Listen, when the media gets a hold of your case, your ass is grass, right? If the media gets a hold of your case, your ass is grass. And you better be sitting on $1 million worth of cash, right, to save your ass, because if not, you're donezo, right? You're donezo. And that's exactly what happened. The media got wind of this case, and the rest is history. Listen, this case wasn't even racial from the get-go. It was never racial, right? The adults made it racial, right? The sick white people, right? And the sick black people in this country. I believe all of y'all are sick. That's why I'm trying to get the fuck away from you Americans, right? I can't stand any of y'all. I can't stand niggas. I can't stand honkies. I can't stand pinche mexicanos, right? I can't stand any of y'all. And that's why I'm trying to get the hell away from y'all, because this disease, it spreads beyond race. It spreads beyond gender. And it's an American sickness, right? And that's exactly what happened, right? America turned it racial, right? This was a unfortunate event that happened between two kids, right? Unfortunate event that happened between two kids, right? And then once the American media got wind of it, once the little groups got wind of it, then that's when everything, turned racial. But in reality, it should have just been, this kid made a horrible decision, and a crime at that, and it should be punished, right? But instead, you get a whole bunch of racial rhetoric, right? You get a whole bunch of, oh, look at, he chimping out and, monkey this, monkey that. And, y'all seen the internet, so y'all already know what's going on. And then, of course, black people got to be retaliatory. So then it just turned into a whole feud when, just looking at it from an outside lens, Karmelo wasn't a bad kid, right? Karmelo, this is not one of those situations where, oh, he was a good kid. Karmelo wasn't a bad kid, right? He wasn't a bad kid. You can see it on him. He wasn't a bad kid. Very well-versed kid, involved in his community. He wasn't a bad kid. However, he still made a terrible, terrible mistake, and it should be punished, right? But listen, man, once again, if you're hoping for life to be fair, right? If you're hoping for America to be fair, listen, you got people that play by totally different rules. And this is what I keep talking to people about, right? Y'all keep thinking that, the rules are the same for everybody. The rules are not the same for everybody, right? Some people play on a whole totally different type of rules, right? And this is what I keep telling y'all. Black Americans, y'all keep thinking that, right? Everybody's gonna hold your hand. Everybody's gonna owe you understanding, right? And some of y'all are still alive from the goddamn on 50s. Some of y'all are still alive from the 60s. Y'all should know this shit already, right? But instead of being vicious, instead of being aggressive, right? And, getting your financials in order, instead of being vicious and aggressive with business, instead of being vicious and aggressive with the mind, y'all continue to go through the same old loop. This is the same shit, right? Niggas get stabbed every day, B. Right? This is the same old ish every single time. And it's like, okay, when are you niggas gonna learn? Right? Because clearly y'all haven't learned. But anyway, now let's take it to possibly it being unfair, all white jury, the dad possibly being, buttered up with the DA and all of that stuff. Listen, that's quite possible, right? That's quite possible. And, listen, man, it is what it is. It is what it is. If that is the case, he could possibly see a mistrial, right? Or not a mistrial. He could possibly get a retrial because of said information. But don't you think that they would have known that already? Why wouldn't the defense bring that up already? Like I said, his defense was shit, right? His defense was shit. I don't understand what the defense did. And then as far as the all-white jury, to my understanding, the prosecution and the defense picks out jurors. So if that's the case, unless there's some kind of mastermind strategy behind what the defense did, they're actually calculating and trying to do a retrial, or they're trying to, I don't know, right? But all I know is both the prosecution and the defense, right, has a say-so in the jurors. So as far as that goes, maybe they wasn't playing fair, right? Maybe y'all right. Maybe they wasn't playing fair. But then this is why you don't end up in them folks' system, right? And this is coming from somebody who's been to jail twice, right? I've been to jail once for a misdemeanor and another time, for a felony, right? Never convicted or anything like that. Just arrested for that, right? Both times, slap on the wrist, right? I knew, deep down in my soul, I knew if there was a third time, yeah, I wasn't coming back home, right? And when I say not coming back home, like I was gonna sit if there was a third time. But went to jail twice, you know, different times, different years. And, you know, luckily I lived in a city that was quite lenient, you know, on young people, right? They had programs and stuff like that, right? There's some things that I can't even talk about that could have landed me, you know, 20 years, right? I think the statute of limitations is up, but you know, there's some things that I've done that definitely could have landed me 20 years. Some violent things that I've done that could have landed me 20 years plus in prison. However, look at me now, you know, doing great things, doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And keeping it pushing and keeping it moving. But the primary message of this video is, man, Karmelo did it, right? And he should face the consequences of the crime that he committed. There is no if, there is no ands, there is no buts about it, right? If you don't want to face said consequences, don't do such actions, right? And he committed such actions. Regardless of if you're debating self-defense, regardless of whatever you're debating, that part doesn't matter. The fact is that he did it. And you can't do something and then think that you're going to control how the world reacts around you. You can't do something and then think that the world or the city or the government is going to operate on the same basis as you. They're not. You can't control that part. And that's the unfortunate part. When you do something, you can't control what happens after that, right? You can't control people's reactions, right? You can't control people's, you know, emotions. You can't control any of that. So I think people need to understand that. Yes, it was an unfortunate case. Yes, it may have been unfair. I'm not disagreeing with anybody, right? I'm just talking the facts. Yes, it may have been all of that, right? We already know it was racial. I mean, we in America, right? And that's why everything is falling, because you bitch ass Americans can't never seem to come together. And that's why I'm out. But yeah, there is no coming together. There is no cohesiveness, right? There is no, law doesn't represent everybody in this country, right? Even when I talk about rich and poor, have and have nots, right? You go through that system and you poor, your ass is grass, right? The same way you go through that system and you black, your ass is grass, right? And then, you know, I mean, we can talk about plenty of times people, listen, I know ninjas who done got off on some horrible cases, okay? Right? So it's not just, you know, all racial. It's not just all, you know, skin color. But the fact of the matter is, clearly, America has a systemic issue, right? I mean, like I said, I know some folks who got off on some horrible stuff, right? However, it's unfortunate that, you know, Karmelo wasn't a gangster. He grew up in a two-parent household, parents successful. You know, it's just unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate all around. And, you know, somebody else lost their kid, you know, in the process. Somebody lost their life in the process. There's no debating about that, right? And like I said, like you take a life, you know, there is no, you know, recourse for that, right? There is no recourse for taking a life, right? You have to sit there and take that shit to the chin, right? I mean, even 35 years, I mean, you know, for taking a life, I mean, quite frankly, I think, you know, hey, it wasn't a life sentence, pretty good deal, right? For doing what you've done. However, you know, you could also argue that somebody who has no criminal record, somebody who's never had history of trouble, and quite frankly, Karmelo was less troublesome than the Metcalf kid. right? On paper. So reports say. So, I mean, at the end of the day, stay at them folks' system, right? Stay out them folks' system. And I've already talked about this. Go and watch my video about the black kid gunned down, South Carolina. I talked about that. I talked about how black people need to go into these systems, right? But y'all don't want to do that, right? I talked about becoming the judges and the attorneys and the police officers so you can control from bottom to top. But, oh, I don't want to be a part of the system. I don't want to, man, listen, you ain't got no goddamn choice because y'all ass end up a part or working for the system in the first place. Most of y'all have jobs, right? Most of y'all work for somebody. Black women tend to work for the government in mass numbers. So y'all keep talking about the system this and system that. Y'all ass already work for the system. So if you want to see change, start from the bottom up, right? Start from the bottom up. Break the whole supply chain. But y'all don't do that. Y'all continue to bitch and moan, you know, about this and about that. Listen, man, I have no sympathy for anybody in this country. I have no sympathy for Karmelo, right? I don't have no sympathy for him. I understand it, right? But I also understand that if he wouldn't have made that choice, he wouldn't have faced the consequences. He wouldn't have to face any of this, right? You wouldn't be sitting in front of an all-white jury. You wouldn't be possibly facing, you know, racial rhetoric, racial undertones dealing with your case. Listen, you wouldn't be dealing with that. So y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comment section, right? And for the black folks who about to get into my comment section and talk about coon this and coon that, right? You must don't know my channel, right? I hold everybody accountable. White folks, black folks, Mexicanos, right? I hold everybody accountable, right? I hold everybody to the flame because that's just who I am. So I'm holding Karmelo to that flame today, right? He did what he did. You can't control the reaction of doing something horrible, right? You got to sit, and it is what it is. But also the system is corrupt. We understand that too, right? Maybe he didn't get a fair trial, right? Maybe he didn't, right? Assuming that he didn't. I mean, nobody ain't playing fair out here, man, and especially if it goes to the media. Listen, it is what it is. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section. Listen, the after pill is the ideology. The escape blueprint is the framework. And PFP life is how you should live, man. Stay out these folks' system, stay out the system, and you'll be all right. Or get up out of this bitch. And this is an after pill. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
I built a life. I built a family. I worked my hands raw to get here. And I'm not done. This is the escape blueprint. PFP life. A way out of the grind and into control. You'll learn how I stack cash, build systems, and reclaim time so you can live on your own terms. You will watch me maneuver and grind towards the life that I achieve for myself, and you can also do the same. Join the circle, join the Patreon, learn the steps, and protect your freedom. The Escape Blueprint, PFP Life.